Hey guys, welcome to 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description. And here's what I need you to do. Make sure you subscribe to the Volumes YouTube channel to stay up to date to everything we're doing here on 3 and Out and the Volume. What is going on, everybody? Just watched a pretty incredible Sunday night game, despite it being a relatively low-scoring game in today's NFL. And despite the referees, and I'm not going to be too negative. I refuse to be negative on a great Sunday. Halloween, trick-or-treaters everywhere, Snickers, Reese's, Baby Ruths getting slammed right now. But God, I've had this feeling for a long time. There are two professions where incompetence doesn't just thrive, it is consistent time and time again, yet like me and you, if we were as incompetent as referees and politicians, our businesses would either go under or we would be fired from our job. Yet in those two professions, incompetence is celebrated and it never ends. But I'm not going to spend too much time on the referees and the flags really all day long. It is atrocious. I've said it. But we'll get into Cooper Rush, the Cowboys, Cousins, Sean Payton. Listen, he's one of the best coaches in the league for a reason. To beat the Bucs with Jameis, looks like tearing his ACL. I saw Jane Slater report that. Incredible. I have some positive news for Bears fans. I know you're going through a rough, long year. Feels like everyone's going to get fired. The team's in shambles, but locked in on that game today with the 49ers and the Bears. I saw something to be excited for, and then something that, was probably the worst part of Saturday. Drake London, the star wide receiver, was injured at USC, and he's a high potential draft pick, so we'll hit on that really quick. But I thought about this. I went to a game. I went to Cal, Oregon State. I got up on Saturday. I watched football, Michigan State. I then went to a football game. I then left that football game and went to a bar and watched more football. I arose on Sunday morning, had breakfast, had coffee, and watched football all day long till I walked in the office and pressed record. And let's just start with a serious note. Sports are fun. And a huge part of sports is the ultimate reality show, especially the NFL is the number one reality show in America. You get some heartwarming stories, right? And I think Cooper Rush, the visual of his parents and his mom and his dad, like putting his hands over his head, saying, you could read his lips, don't screw it up, be smart. His wife right next to them. In his first career start, an undrafted free agent who fills in for Dak Prescott last second, throws for over 300 yards, throws the game-winning touchdown to Amari. That's really cool. And, I think most of us can relate. Whether it was you grew up with your parents, your grandparents, your aunt and uncles, someone for you to make it in life has to support you. And those people, I know for me, those were my mom and dad. I would not have been able to be doing what I'm doing right now without my mom and dad. I don't care what you do. You have a support system. And deep down, there are several people that you just care more about and have more meaning, mainly because they have been there for longer. And that visual of his parents, is still cool. I don't care how many millions of dollars in television ratings and all that bullshit goes out the window. That is still pretty pure. And I know for me, having lost my father a couple years ago, that's awesome. What a night for Cooper Rush to get to share it with his family, to do that for the Dallas Cowboys on the road in a very just difficult environment. And let's face it, the Cowboys are good. Even if they didn't win that game, what an impressive performance. And I give the Cowboys a lot of credit. I have nothing but respect for big picture, long-term thinkers. Because I think it's human nature to think short term, right? But the smartest, most successful people always think long term. Why do you invest? Why do you eat right? Why do you work out? You don't do it just for the next day. You do it long term. You do it for your older age. You do it, you think big picture. That's what successful people think like. But we're all, tested at different points in time, in our lives like to take the shortcut, do what feels right at the moment, right? And the Cowboys didn't do that. They didn't push the envelope. Now, they had margin for error being 6-1 going into this game. So they lose a road game, Sunday Night Football, without their starting quarterback. It wouldn't have been that weird. But the character of this team is, let's face it, on offense, they have stars everywhere. Amari Cooper, stud. He's been worth every penny of that 5-year, $100 million contract. CeeDee Lamb, walk-off home run draft pick. Zeke Elliott still can make plays. Jarwin, good player. Gallup's nowhere to be found because he's injured, and Wilson had a sweet touchdown today. He makes plays every game. He also had a sweet pass to CeeDee Lamb. Offensively, they are as talented as any team. And now we find out their backup's not bad. Holy shit. The Cowboys are, I thought they were good. They're better than I thought. And defensively, Randy Gregory, now that weed's legal, thank God, it should have been legal a long time ago, kicking ass and taking names. Micah Parsons, absolute badass. I mean, how good is that guy? You don't need to be a former NFL scout to see his physicality, his play speed, his explosion. They did that breakdown. He can line up everywhere. He can play defensive end. He can play outside linebacker. He can play middle linebacker. He can, cover the flat. He can make open field tackles. He can bend the edge. Holy shit, is that guy a dominant player. Hopefully, Trayvon Diggs is okay. It looked like he hit his foot pretty hard. I think it was Dalvin Cook's knee on that tackle right at the end of the game. Hopefully he didn't break his foot or anything, and it's just, a lot of pain. He'll be okay, but the Cowboys are stacked. And to find out that you have a competent backup quarterback, I mean, the best player on their team was on the sideline tonight. Think about that. The best player on the Cowboys did not play. And then I think on the flip side is like Cousins makes a ton of money. And I've said for a while that I've come around on Cousins a lot because I think he's better than ever I thought that he would have been. He's been a very, very good quarterback the last several years. But he has a huge downfall. And it's that he's a marginal athlete at best. And unlike Brady and Manning and some of these other guys that were terrible athletes, again, for the NFL level, when it breaks down, he clearly just doesn't have the ability to do anything. He short circuits. And forever, like when he was at Washington in his first couple years in Minnesota, he had this primetime thing. Couldn't win on primetime. Like, Cousins crushes it on these 10 a.m. games. He crushes it on these morning games when there's 7 other games going at the same time. But when we're all watching them, and Sunday Night Football is the #1 show in America, it's like, what's going on? And you'll be like, oh, if you're a Vikings fan, the offensive line sucks. Yeah, most offensive lines suck. Why, when everything breaks down, does he just look terrible? He looks god-awful. Is it because he presses? Is it because ultimately, physically, he doesn't actually possess that much talent? I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it. But nights like tonight when I watch, I go, yeah, I think the Niners avoided a big time, they got lucky that he ended up not on their team. And ultimately, this is where Vikings fans go, yeah, he's okay, but, we'd want better. Because that's what he is. When it's truly nut-cutting time, in the biggest game, in the biggest environment, when every single eyeball in the country is watching you, you just go, yeah, you got thoroughly outplayed by Cooper Rush. He just looks every bit as better than you. I mean, it's just a fact. It's not like he doesn't have wide receivers, Thielen, Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. I mean, holy moly. But there's just something to be desired, with that player. When you factor in the money. I mean, he makes $35 million a year. If he made $10 million a year, I would not have the same complaint. But his tenure with the Vikings, he'll have signed for $90, signed another $60 million. You're talking a $150 million player. And it just leaves something to be desired. I think the most impressive performance of the day goes to Sean Payton. What Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, that front office and coaching staff has done and built with that franchise, I tip my hat. Because that is a well-rounded team. It's one thing forever. It's like, oh, they had Drew Brees. They can just put up all these yards. They're just a consistent playoff team. They went through that stretch, I think, in like the mid-2000s, mid-2010s, when their defense was really bad. But early on in the 2010s, and really what they've been the last 4 or 5 years, just a juggernaut team. Now, they don't win Super Bowls. Hell, sometimes they don't even win a playoff game. But that is a well-run franchise. But ultimately, that coach is why when I talk to my friends in the NFL, he's held to such high regard. It's why when Mike Tomlin went off to the media when asked about the USC job, and he says, why don't you go ask Andy Reid and Sean Payton? Because Mike Tomlin views, obviously Belichick, but views the next class of elite coaches as Mike Tomlin, Sean Payton, and Andy Reid. Because that's what Sean Payton is. He's an elite coach. He has won games over the last several years with Teddy Bridgewater, who, let's face it, sucks. He's a backup. He's won games with Taysom Hill, who, I think he's got a concussion now, they said on the broadcast. He is not a quarterback. I mean, he's basically a fullback / tight end. He's won games with Jameis Winston, who I think we all agreed was kind of a disaster. And then, which sucks, I mean, I wanted to see him play with Jameis. What he's been able to accomplish this year with Jameis has been really impressive. But according to Jane Slater, it looks like he tore his ACL. And then he gets Trevor Siemian, who, I'll be honest, I did not know was on the Saints. I would have guessed he was out of the league. I would have guessed that, he's probably coaching, he's like an assistant coach for Northwestern now or something. And then he goes and beats the Bucs the majority of the game with Trevor Siemian. It's very, very impressive. I thought by far, the Jets beating the Cincinnati Bengals, that's an impressive win, but, the Jets have nothing to play for. They don't even care. The Saints are playing for something. They're trying to make the playoffs. They're 4-2. They're playing their divisional rival. And to win that game, and for Brady and the Bucs to come back, and for them still to win that game, was just, to me, the most impressive thing I saw. Now, is he going to be able to maintain this with Siemian? Do they need to do something? Do they need to trade for a quarterback? Do they call about Marcus Mariota? Jimmy Garoppolo, would the Niners even think about that? I doubt it. They can't even afford to because of the cap. It's complicated because the Saints aren't going to have any cap space. You can't trade for a player who makes any money. Now, Mariota doesn't make any money. They're in a tough spot. But if he's able to make the playoffs this year, that'd be one of the most impressive playoff teams I've ever seen. Jameis, Siemian, and whoever they potentially trade for, that's crazy. And that speaks to why a guy like Sean Payton makes $10, $12 million a year. Because he's worth every fucking penny. He really is. And Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland and the team they've built from a personnel standpoint is awesome as well. Because they're doing it without Michael Thomas, who, when healthy, should be one of their best players. He's nowhere to be found, right? Because he got the knee surgery right before training camp as a big FU. He pulled the Shaq. If I'm going to get hurt on company time, I'm going to rehab on company time. I'm going to enjoy my summer. Don't totally blame him. I like the summer to play golf. I wouldn't want to be rehabbing my knee. Someone that might need knee surgery, I'm going to do it in the winter. But luckily I don't play NFL football, so it doesn't really matter when I do it. But that was to beat the Bucs with Trevor bleeping Siemian. Are you kidding me? That is just, I just kept watching TV. I'm like, this is really going to happen? No. And I know Antonio Brown's hurt. Gronk got knocked out with a bad back. I don't care. I don't care if he's got Richard Sherman, Billy Sherman, and Richard Sherman's mom in the defensive backfield. That's a big boy win. And I want to say something because this franchise is taking a lot of heat. There's a lot of negativity surrounding the Chicago Bears. And let's face it, they get treated, I think, by the national media and by their fans like they've won 3 games a year for the last 5 years. They went 8-8 last year, and because the Arizona Cardinals crumbled down the stretch, they were able to make the playoffs. Now, when you're an 8-8 team and you make the playoffs, let's face it, we don't really view you like a normal playoff team. And the previous year, they missed the playoffs. I think they went 7-9, and the year before they went 12-4. But this year, they're not only not going to make the playoffs, they're probably going to win 6 games, right? They stink. Now, Khalil Mack, who is the best player on the team, missed today. Who knows? Maybe this week they put him on injured reserve. Their offensive line is bad. Eddie Jackson got hurt today. They're not very good. Khalil Herbert, the running back that they got, I think Kansas, then he transferred to Virginia Tech. That guy's pretty good. So he's a little bright spot. But I saw a lot today with Justin Fields. And there was a reason for me. Trevor Lawrence was 1, Fields was 2. Now, I don't know. We'll see. Trey Lance won't even probably play till next year. We won't be able to evaluate him for a couple years. Mac Jones was on a ready-made team, and he's been fine. He looks like Jimmy Garoppolo or something. Zach Wilson's hurt. So, as we know with Josh Allen, you can never evaluate. Sam Darnold, it takes a couple years. But I see a lot to like about Justin Fields. He's gotten better every week. I watched him today against the Niners, who have pretty aggressive defense, especially the front. He's very calm, cool, and collected. His running ability, we give so much credit to Kyler Murray and Lamar because of their running ability, and rightfully so. Lamar's the greatest running quarterback in the history of the league. I know the stats actually don't equal that right now, but I think we all agree he's even a better runner than Michael Vick, and that's saying something. He is the greatest runner in the history of the league. Kyler, we've never seen a guy of that size be that good. This guy is the third fastest quarterback in the NFL, Justin Fields. He runs a 4.4 flat 40. That is hauling ass. That's faster than most DBs and wide receivers. He made a play today where he ran around that if Lamar or Kyler have done that, I mean, we've seen it before, and we fall out of our chairs and applaud. I did when Justin Fields did that. But he made so many throws today when I went, yeah, this guy's going to be okay. You know, whether it's Nagy coaching him, whether they get a new coach, that's what I'd want to work with. That guy's physical tools. You know why? Because he has them all. He's 6'2", 6'2 and a half. He's 220. He can run like a wide receiver. He's got an absolute hose. I thought for the most part he was pretty accurate today in a spot where they had the lead and then they lost the lead. And I watched him the entire time and I went, I see a lot in this guy. Now, again, I'm biased. I liked him a shitload coming out. So anytime that you already have a preconceived decision on a human, you're either going to root for them or root against them. Though I'm not a big Mac Jones guy, and I'll be the first to say I watched that whole game. He was awesome today. He was really good. You know, actually, he missed some throws, but I was impressed. He's been very good for the Patriots. You know, but Justin Fields has been up and down. But I saw today where if you can keep building on games like today, you're going to have a franchise quarterback. Now, it's on the organization to get Ryan Pace the hell out of there. One of the worst GMs in the league. Under no circumstances is he allowed to build around Justin Fields. Zero. He's got to go. Adios. Bye-bye. Thanks for your efforts. I get a real GM in there, and I start putting pieces around him. Now, you had to give up a first-round pick to get him. Whatever. The Bears, in my lifetime, have never had a quarterback. Any Bears fans listening agree. They've never had a guy with these physical tools. Now, he's got a long way to go. So if Matt Nagy is fired, you have to hire an offensive coach. Under no circumstances can you hire a defensive or special teams coach. You have to hire a coach who is also the offensive play caller. That, to me, is a must, like Nagy was. Now, I know Nagy's given up offensive play calling. You get a guy who can coach that position because I don't know what else you can ask for out of your young quarterback. He has all the tools. The job of the coach is to make guys better and then use the guys' talents in their scheme to then go win games. But I understand this year is going to suck for the Bears. Your team is not good. You're not the Lions. You're not the Jags. But you're not very good. Like, you're not even Minnesota. I mean, you stink. But you got a quarterback. And you got a young quarterback to build on who's 21, 22 years old, who's, starred at Ohio State, and I think we can all agree brings a lot to the table. It's also incumbent upon him, right? Because it's not just it's also on the players to work hard, to dedicate himself to his craft, to want to improve in the offseason. You know, a big reason Dak Prescott got so good is because of how focused, how determined he is. His character separated him, right? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, their character separates them. Because when you improve, when no one is watching, you don't just improve on game day. You improve January, February, March, April, early in the morning in the gym, lonely days in the film room in April with your offensive coordinator. You don't get any credit for that publicly. None. Nobody sees it. That's when you separate. So if he has that, and so it's incumbent upon him and then incumbent upon the organization, they have a chance to succeed. They obviously, the best quarterback in that division is Aaron Rodgers. But the Vikings have, at the end of the day, just kind of an average guy. And the Lions have nobody. And even if the Lions get the number one pick, there's no good quarterback in this draft. There's no quarterback that even is remotely deserving of the a top 10 pick, let alone the number one overall pick. So I think the Bears fans, even on a dark day, and it's a dark day because the Niners had lost 4 straight games, and they kind of kicked your asses in the second half. But I still think there are some positive moments potentially in the future. You got to get the offseason. And again, Justin Fields has to want it. And then on just kind of a negative note, Drake London, who I was talking to a buddy who's a college scouting director for a good team. And I was asking about Drake London a couple weeks ago because USC was playing Notre Dame. USC, their interim coach is a joke. I mean, their coaching staff is an embarrassment. They are in shambles. Their team stinks. They have one guy who is a fucking monster, and that's Drake London. I think he has 88 catches through 8 games. I mean, he is just a beast. And he broke his ankle. He's out for the season. He had to be put in an air cast, and it's over. And he's the guy, I was told that he's by far the number 1 wide receiver in this class. And I don't think it's a great wide receiver. Not, Jerry Jeudy's and CeeDee Lamb's and Justin Jefferson's and Jamar Chase's. But he's a guy that I think was going to compete to be a top 10 player in the draft. Now, I don't know how fast he was going to run, and this won't help his cause. And maybe he'll drop a little bit, but he's a first-round lock. I mean, he's big. He's got incredible ball skills. He's incredibly productive. From what I've been told by the scouting community, his character's off the charts. He's a total package. But he broke his ankle. And, it sucks. And there's no way around it. We're playing football here. And in football, you get hurt, in innocuous plays like it happened to Trayvon Diggs today in a tackle that he didn't even make. He just hits his foot on a knee. You can get hurt in practice. You can get hurt in games. When I didn't even see the Drake London injury. But, these are the things as a scout and the front offices now. I'm sure most teams had him as a top 15 player. It's just one of those wait and sees. And I think you got to pray that it's just a clean break. He can rehab it and everything will be okay. And sometimes, for a guy, maybe he goes from being the 8th overall pick to the 18th overall pick, and he ends up on a better team. He ends up in a better situation. But it's easy for me to say right now, sitting in my office, healthy. It's another thing for him probably laying in a hospital bed right now. So that's just something to kind of keep an eye on because he was, I think he was going to be a top 10 pick. And I think he would have been worthy of being a top 10 pick. He's kind of like a Jamar Chase mixed with a CeeDee Lamb. He's not as fast as Jamar Chase, but he's got some CeeDee. He's got a combination of, that physicality with the CeeDee Lamb. He's a stud, man. He really is. But broken ankle for a guy that, we just keep our fingers crossed because reading about him and his character, he's the type of player I root for. I don't root for slappies. I don't root for assholes. I don't root for bad guys, even if they're great players. I enjoy watching them, but I'm not a fan of them as people. I root for good people. I root for Dak Prescott, right? I root for Adam Thielen. Like I want to root for good people who are great players that my future unborn, hopefully boy, can root for, can buy his jersey. And from everything that I've been told and read about Drake London, that's him. So yeah, we'll end on a negative note, I guess. But that ends my football watching. I have consumed. I can't consume any more football. I really can't. I've consumed as much football. I attended a game, watched football from sun up till sundown for 2 straight days. It's 9 o'clock at night, and I've been watching football strong since 10 a.m. I didn't even work out. I ate a lot of food today. A lot of food. I called today a cheat day, and I just kept doubling down and kept eating. And now I feel fantastic. So I can't wait till Monday. We'll have a podcast come out on Tuesday, and we'll keep rocking and rolling. Hope everyone has a great week. And if you're listening to this, I hope your team won. And if they didn't, that sucks. Peace out. Adios. Thanks for watching 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description. And make sure you subscribe right now to the Volumes YouTube channel.